1946. Now, November this year will mark 100 years since the end of the First World War. Remembrance events will take place around the world, but organisers face a real challenge of connecting new generations to those who lost their lives a century ago.
So what's going to happen is that later this year, silhouettes representing fallen soldiers will appear around the country. It's been inspired by the success of another striking remembrance project. Remember, from 2014, it's the Poppies, as our correspondent Robert Hall reports.
The Tower of London, 2014. A wave of scarlet flowing around the ancient walls. Every one of nearly 900,000 ceramic poppies representing a British or colonial serviceman who died in the 4-year conflict. The installation was called Blood-Swept Lands and Seas of Red. It made a real connection with the public. An estimated 5 million people came here, and many of them bought a poppy as their own tribute to the fallen.
For many of us, the only real links with past conflicts can be found in our cemeteries or on our war memorials. Names from so long ago that it's very difficult for today's generations to make a connection. But what if these men could return to their cities, towns and villages?
This is Penshurst in Kent. 51 of the men from this tiny village who volunteered to fight in the First World War never came home. And yet, here they sit, ghostly figures in the pews, a powerful physical presence.
It's about actually bringing them back into the community, how they lived as well as how they died.
Martin Barrode believes this installation can inspire other communities across the UK.
This is about physically trying to get them back into the village psyche. So that when the school children come in here and they see the 50 names sitting on the pews, they can identify with these people. And when you can see where they live just up the hill there, or they were over there, or they were in the choir, you can really identify with this.
Villagers here have been fascinated by the idea of taking the lost off the memorials. Now the government has agreed to help fund more installations like this one. But other figures have sprung up today, linking past with present. As the armistice centenary approaches, There But Not There wants us to remember in different ways, and in doing so, raise funds to help those who've been scarred by more recent conflicts. In Kent, veterans have helped to create an army of Tommies, which, like the poppies at the Tower, will be available to all of us.
The importance of the Tommy project is huge to me, because my family are quite a lot of military in there. My granddad and great uncle were in the First World War in the Somme and Verdun, and I always think of them when I'm making them.
In places of worship, in schools, in public buildings, in fact, wherever people gather to remember, the past can become more real.
There's something, I think, very fitting that this should come at the end of 4 years. It brings it back almost to the homely and the local, and that seems to work very well.
Robert Hall, BBC News, Kent.
And actually